I've finished Batman Arkham Asylum 3 times in my life. First was right back when it released in 2009 on the Xbox 360, and my god, I loved that game. But loving one of the best action-adventure superhero games at 20 years old, having a completely stress-free life, isn't saying much about the game. The second time was replaying it on PC a few years later, casually re-experiencing a classic at higher frame rates and resolution. And the third time was now. 16 years later, I went through the game with hundreds of new gaming experiences under my belt to see if Batman Arkham Asylum stands the test of time. Is this game truly a masterpiece? Or was it just great because our standards were different back then? This is Batman Arkham Asylum, 16 years later. Before this game came out in 2009, the world's most iconic superhero hadn't received a video game worthy of his legacy. That all changed when Rocksteady Studios released one of the most influential games of its time. Sure, there were many attempts at giving players the Batman power fantasy, but none of them left a lasting impact. And I wouldn't blame you for thinking that can't really be true, right? How hard can it be to make a great Batman video game after all? All the ingredients are there for the Caped Crusader to have a spectacular video game adaptation. Still a human, so no superpowers that can make him feel too overpowered, has a lot of gadgets at his disposal, so it's easier to bring variety into gameplay, and so on. Call Batman whatever you want, but he is still anything but boring. Still, for a long time, developers missed the mark. I'm not saying good Batman games didn't exist. In fact, there were quite a few of them, even great ones. But no video game up until this point felt like it was truly worthy of one of the most looked up to characters ever created. And then came Batman Arkham Asylum. It felt like Rocksteady looked at every underwhelming adaptation, at every game that did things right, then with all that decided to do better. Much better. What they ended up making wasn't just a great superhero game. It was one of the best video games ever made, full stop. You would think playing a game for the third time can't possibly show you anything new, but playing a video game casually is one thing, and playing a game critically is another thing entirely. For me at least. The entire Arkham Island, on which this game takes place, is built around progression. Locked areas, unreachable ledges, sealed off corridors, they all invite you to come back later once you have the right gadget. The more you play, the more intimate you become with the island, and you start knowing the place like the back of your hand. You start recognizing old paths in new ways, rethinking how the spaces around you work. It's a structure we're most familiar with in 2D Metroidvanias, but what Arkham Asylum pulls off with this genre in a 3D space is nothing short of spectacular. It's in fact so good, you might blasphemously think for a while that Metroidvanias work better in 3D. And this is one of the first signs that what we're looking at here is a masterpiece. A good game adds things that fit. A great game makes things fit in creative ways. But a masterpiece puts things in a game that everyone would think is a bad idea and shows you in fact you were wrong all along and suddenly you don't want it any other way. I'm 99% sure that made sense. Some of Arkham Asylum's biggest strengths come through its atmosphere and its exploration. There's a lot of beauty in those quiet moments after the story ends, when you're free to roam the island fully equipped and uncover every hidden piece of lore. Any inkling of frustration towards the exploration goes away, as now you have 100% everything at your disposal to go through every nook and cranny of the island, as nothing sits out of reach at this point. The story of Arkham Asylum is possibly its weakest link. Not because it's bad, but because everything else surrounding the narrative is exquisite. Now, in a sense, Arkham Asylum's story begins with an ending, or what appears to be one. The first thing you do as Batman in this game is delivering your prey. You've just caught the Joker. Gotham's most dangerous criminal is finally back behind bars. As Batman and Joker are the more mature version of Tom and Jerry, after you escort the infamous villain to Arkham, well, that should be it. But of course, it isn't. Joker wanted to be caught. Batman, being the smartest detective that he is, smells something might be off, but he plays along anyway. And once Joker steps through the Arkham gates, his real plan begins. From a narrative standpoint, I think that's a clever way to start the game. However, this is not the most intricate story you'll ever see in a game by any stretch of the imagination, but It doesn't need to be. In short, Joker's after a chemical compound called Titan, a supercharged version of Venom, which is the substance that turns Bane into a monster. His whole evil plan? Use the Titan to create an army of super mutants. It's classic comic book stuff that is just serviceable. Why I think Batman as a character works so well has nothing to do with Batman himself, but rather the whole cast of villains surrounding him. I always love this universe mostly because of how freaking cool and creative are the baddies of Batman's world. And this game has that in spades, because you don't just face Bane and the Joker in this game. You're gonna have to go against the likes of Scarecrow, which has one of my favorite boss fights in gaming, but we'll get to that in a second, Poison Ivy, Killer Croc, Victor Zsasz, and a whole gallery of rogues. Even lesser known villains show up through Riddler's puzzles, turning side content into a surprisingly rich dive into the darker corners of Gotham's lore. I do love some Batman myself, but I'm definitely not a comic book aficionado, so through this game I actually discovered quite a few more. Characters like Calendar Man, who only commits crimes on holidays, Humpty Dumpty, obsessed with taking things apart, and sometimes people, Amadeus Arkham, the asylum's founder whose story is woven into the very walls, and many, many more. Every room of the asylum holds a secret. Every hallway has history. But the crown jewel of this game lies in its gameplay. Arkham Asylum struck the perfect balance between stealth and action, and that's exactly what a Batman game needs. You don't just punch your way through your problems. You plan, you observe. You stalk enemies from the shadows and take them out one by one like a predator picking off his prey. In most games where you're stuck in the shadows, it's because you lack the ability to overpower your enemies. You're weak and you need the shadows. Here, you do it out of power, not fear. It's not stealth because you're weak, it's stealth because you're calculated, smart, and want to terrify your opponents even more. Now, the actual combat of Arkham Asylum consists of two major pillars. Against armed enemies, where stealth is your only real option, and against thugs with no guns, where you become a force of nature. In my opinion, the dose of realism this choice brings with it is a great decision from the developers. Because you may be laughed out of the room when you're trying to infuse a Batman game with realism, but it just adds so much to the experience. Yes, you are Batman, but if 4 thugs with guns see you coming, they will shoot. And not like stormtroopers. On the flip side, when you're fighting unarmed enemies, regardless of their number, you're Batman, one of the greatest fighters of this universe, so yeah, you'll destroy street-level thugs in a fistfight. And you do just that through the free-flow combat. 16 years later, it seems that this Rocksteady-developed action game perfected the combat in a video game, because everything that came after it just copied it. The free-flow combat system became legendary for a reason. It's responsive, impactful, and addictive. And that's why it's never been topped. When it clicks, it looks more like a fight scene from a movie than a gameplay system. And it also feels satisfying for the player because you can't just blindly mash the attack buttons. You need to time everything. One missed hit and your combo breaks. The system demands rhythm. You punch, counter, dodge, throw gadgets, and finish enemies off with cinematic flair. Every blow lands with weight. Every move looks deliberate. I know, I can't say you just feel like Batman, but you kinda do. Arkham Asylum is also filled with a lot of puzzles, but they're so cleverly designed they don't feel like ones. Instead of giving you a classic puzzle to solve, Batman Arkham Asylum disguises them in gameplay. Early on, there's a moment where you need to rescue 3 doctors. When you reach Dr. Young, she's surrounded by 5 inmates. If any of them sees you, she dies instantly. So the game smartly forces you to plan carefully and eliminate them all simultaneously. It's a stealth puzzle, but one seamlessly integrated into gameplay. Later, there's a sequence with quite a few enemies in the area and the lever that controls a death trap. Joker ordered them to pull it the second they spot you, so it's that kind of instant game over scenario if you get caught. Well, taking them out silently one by one would seem pretty trivial, but they have special colors that alert each other if one goes down. So you can't even take them out. Your only option is to get past them silently and disable the trap first. Moments like this keep you alert all the time and the gameplay fresh. The game doesn't let you get comfortable with your playstyle. It insists you always improvise. Arkham Asylum's combat is a perfectly baked cake, and the boss fights, well, they're the frosting. As I mentioned earlier in the video, Scarecrow's boss fights, yes, they are multiple, are one of my favorite encounters with a boss in a video game. And his segments don't even feel like the classic boss fights. His toxin exposes your deepest fears, turning levels into trippy side-scrolling nightmares. You don't even fight in the classical sense. You just try to survive your mind's horrors. It's a boss fight that feels fresh even by today's standards. When you die in this game, DC proves you don't need Deadpool to break the fourth wall in your universe. Customized game over screens make even the more frustrating deaths something to look forward to. For a while at least. Scarecrow will come taunting you, Joker will start mocking you if you die during random gameplay, and so on. Even if it might be just a small detail, I feel like modern gaming, if you will, misses this sort of creative additions. Speaking of creative, the Joker fake-out scene is one of the biggest troll moments in gaming. And if you've played the game and say you didn't fall for it, well, you're lying. Near the end of the story, the game seemingly crashes on you, then you die in what appears to be a gameplay moment. After that, a game over prompt appears with the message, use the middle stick to dodge Joker's gunfire. You look down at your controller and realize you've been trolled. Arkham Asylum is full of these brilliant creative surprises that show just how playful, how confident, and how passionate the developers were making this game. Another standout for me from the boss encounters is Killer Croc. For once, in the sewers, you feel small. In Croc's lair, you easily take second place for the most terrifying in the room. Keeping the tone of realism in check, a one-on-one fight with a huge crocodile monster is out of the question. You're not here to fight. What you need to do in these sewers is to gather materials for an antidote. You must carefully tiptoe across wooden planks in order to not give your position away. If you do, Killer Croc will charge and you'll most likely be dead. You do have a slim chance of survival, but you need to act fast and hit him with your batarang. I'll admit this sewer boss fight actually keeps you on high alert because you never know where he's gonna come from next. A smooth nod from the developers, making you feel like the hunted one for once. It's another great change of pace, turning this game for a brief second into a survival horror one. And listen, we all know the game fumbled the last boss fight. It feels like a rushed conclusion that frankly goes against almost everything the game offered up until this last very moment. It betrays the tone and intelligence of both the character and the game itself. Throughout the whole experience, Joker is portrayed as intelligent, manipulative, and psychologically terrifying. But for some reason, his last hurrah is turning himself into a roided up version. The fight is boring, repetitive, and filled with predictable attack patterns. Beat thugs, punch Joker, repeat. But does this final moment take away the masterpiece label from Arkham Asylum? Definitely not. It's Michael Jordan scoring 60 but hitting an airball as the last shot. Or Messi scoring a hat-trick and winning the game, but missing a penalty in the last minute. 16 years later, Batman Arkham Asylum remains one of the best video games ever made. But more importantly, it stands the test of time and it's still fun to play today. And that's a badge of honor that not many other games, even great ones, can be proud of wearing.